All right, so let me try and say something somewhat useful about Nietzsche. Um, again, gonna get cut short, but it's how it's gonna be until the next time around. So Nietzsche has this idea that morality begins with nobles. I'm gonna put it again in sort of simplistic language, but the origin of morality comes from the nobility that view themselves as good, and that idea of good then becomes universalized. It becomes universalized through a series of steps. As nobility grows in power, uh, they take on more and more people under their control, and the actual nobles, the ruling class, gets divided into two groups. There are the warrior class, the noble class, and then the priestly noble class. And it's the priests that turn this idea of good that originates just in the preferences and tastes, the desires of the nobles, and turn it into a religion. Now, Nietzsche says in many places that this noble morality that begins out of self-love, is a kind of stupid morality. And so we should, as we continue talking about this, we're going to see the many problems with this, but we should be aware of, be sensitive to the fact that Nietzsche thinks that although there's something good about this morality and that it does come from self-love and a celebration of one's own strength, one's own desires and tastes, that there's also something sort of fundamentally stupid about it. It's not a morality of intelligence. Now, um, the sort of next stage in moral development, right? So, uh, this is the origin story of morality. But these rulers, the nobles, who take pleasure in, delight in conquest, in spreading their own idea of the good across the world, subjugating others to themselves. We can certainly question Nietzsche's reading of history here, but it's a pretty familiar traditional idea of history, right? We start off with warring tribes. Those tribes, believe that they are righteous and good. They do battle, and the victorious tribe then conquers and subordinates the other tribe, and the victor's values and idea of the good is retained and imposed on others. So, what's I think really interesting about Nietzsche, and however critical we're going to be about Nietzsche, I think uh, what's really essential and really interesting and really important is that he sees the idea of good, the idea of ethics, the idea of virtue as deriving from power. That it is the powerful who determine what is good and what is right, and indeed what is useful. Uh, so Nietzsche is the first philosopher that we've looked at who, uh, as we said, is a cultural relativist, but I think his key insight is in seeing that it's not that you come to power by being good. It's that those who come to power get to determine what is good. And this relationship between power and the good is really what is central to Nietzsche. Um, the powerful believe themselves to be good, and as they exert that power over others, as they subjugate others using that power, they spread that idea of good, their idea of good, to others. So I think hopefully we'll have a chance to pick this up again, right? The way in which power authorizes good rather than the other way around. Right? We like to believe that the good authorizes power. But Nietzsche says it's the opposite. Right? That we can go back to Plato, or it's a very common idea, right? That might makes right, and Nietzsche is simply saying that's how it was, right? That is the original story. Those who were strong, those who had might, were able to determine what was right for everyone and what the right way to be was. Now things get more interesting and considerably dicier when there is a rebellion against the morality of the nobles. When this noble morality, what Nietzsche will soon call a master morality, gets challenged. And so let's first be clear that the reason why he calls that the master morality is because of that relationship to power. Right? Those who wield power, who exert power over others, are the masters, in the way that a king was a master, or a warlord is a master, and that masters in that way have a certain kind of morality, and that is this morality of nobility that I was just talking about. Now, the major revolution that Nietzsche is concerned with in the Genealogy of Morals is the rebellion against this master morality, this noble morality. And that rebellion comes through, he refers to them as the Jews. Right? He refers to them as the Jews. They're Jews. It's the struggle between a Jewish morality and this noble morality. But let's be very clear, and this is where things get really subtle, I think, for Nietzsche, because when Nietzsche is talking about the Jews, and he's talking about Jewish morality, yes, he's talking about the Jews, and we need to be very sensitive to the anti-Semitic undertones in Nietzsche's writing, and I think that there are many of those. We also have to remember that Nietzsche is writing, in the 19th century, when, in any case, to say the bare minimum, things were different. Now, there was rampant anti-Semitism in the late 19th century, especially in Germany. Nietzsche was not an anti-Semite, and in fact, he spoke out against friends of his who were explicitly anti-Semitic. The composer Richard Wagner is a notorious anti-Semite, explicit anti-Semite, and Nietzsche disavowed him.